And we're live and on the air, and this is Ed Dyer, and you're watching the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. Hopefully a few other minions will pop in as we go along. We have UXFI that I think might be Jay in the chat room, and also Hot Rod. Excuse me. But besides me, you're also going to get some interesting science stories. We got floating icebergs on a neon ocean in Pluto. A couple of gene editing story. And what these researchers are trying to do is, instead of editing DNA at the front end, the blueprint, they want to edit RNA at the back end. It's RNA that produces the stem cell. So what they're hoping is that this would be an improvement for some treatments. If you do it on the front end, DNA, then you can't change it. You can't change that particular reproduction of that stem cells. If you do it at the back end, the idea is it's just a change, and you can, I guess, reverse it or something a lot easier by working with RNA instead of DNA. I'll cover the story, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm talking about. We also, why is the human cerebral cortex? It's the largest cerebral cortex among all the primates. Why is that? And these researchers think they have an idea, has to do with a particular molecule. And Jay is complimenting me on my shirt. Ooh, thank you, Jay. Actually, I normally have I didn't even put the headphones on because I'm the only one here. And I don't need to hear myself talking. So until somebody else shows up, why bother? All right, in any event. NASA has put up a series of satellites, and the terrific thing about that is it gives us a much better view of what's happening on Earth. The weather systems, even when it comes to maybe finding something like some archaeological site that you can't see from the ground. Unfortunately, in this case, they're finding unreported sites of toxic pollution. Good to know. Maybe we can do something about it. We've got some good news. Developing countries are increasing their renewables by around 5%. Excuse me for a second. I got a request from Jay in the chat room. Might like to join the Hangout. So I'm going to post the link. Okay, so he can join me if he wants to. What else we got? We got more news in wearable monitoring technology. Wearable devices you can put on, even, maybe, and connect them to your smartphone in some cases. And you can monitor your own health 24/7. Hey. Hello, Jay.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great so far.
That's good.
Had to put on my earphones so I could hear you talking. What else? We've got, some prostate cancer. Now, people in my age bracket, I'll say it's common. I'm going to guess maybe 50% of the people that I know in my age bracket, they have prostate cancer, or we'll develop it. It's just a thing for men, fairly common. And what's changed is the approach to treating it. Up until about 5 years ago, the tendency was you recommended either surgery or radiation treatments. All have side effects. But for men diagnosed at the earliest stages, and they have something called the Gleason level. 6 is the lowest level. And I think if you have a Gleason level 6 tumor, the odds are 1 in a million that you will die with it sometime in the next 10 years. And that doesn't make any difference whether you use aggressive treatments or not. If it's at that low stage, and a lot more guys are choosing not to have it treated, what they call wageful watching, you go in to the doctor and he monitors this particular tumor. Also, we're also being able to better see whether or not the particular tumor is an aggressive style tumor that is more likely to develop into something more seriously. And even if it's like second level, et cetera, it really only becomes dangerous when it metastasizes and spreads to other organs. So in many cases, if you get it early enough, all you do is watchful waiting, and you don't have the treatments, and you don't have all the nasty side effects. All right, got a kind of interesting story. We're seeing a lot of the websites. They want to know what people are looking at. And so they're using tracking devices. Now, by that, I mean like on Facebook, they're going to look at the things that you're going to like or not like. They're probably going to look at, for instance, if I bought a hat on Amazon, I go on to Facebook, and I see that advertisement immediately showing up on Facebook. What this particular company is selling, Jay, could you turn off the mic while I'm talking?
Hmm?
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Getting a little feedback there. Okay. The tracking device I was talking about. Okay. Now what they want to do is they'll actually be able, they want to have access to your webcam. Okay, what problem could that be, right? And the idea is they can then see what you're looking at. They can actually track your eye movements so that if you went on to an advertising site, they can see exactly what advertisement you're looking at. If you're going on to like the New York Times, they can see exactly what articles you're looking at. The idea is great for the advertisers, etc. So now they say, we can give you better customer service because we're going to let you know only what you're interested in. Right. I'm going to give you access to my webcam? Sure, because I trust you. No, I don't think so. All right. Got another interesting story from Sweden. And this is, it has, talking about the demographics and how in Sweden, unexpectedly, over the last 5 years, there are now more men than women. Interesting development. Some speculation as to why, but the thing is, it was just really unexpected. And also, although like in the European Union, you've still got like 500,000 more women than men, but the trend is changing. More men are surviving, they think, because of better treatments for the main killer of men, which is heart disease. Therefore, you're seeing more older people, men surviving. And so that ratio of men to women is changing. Another change is that multiple births are down in the United States. That is, women having 3, 4 children. And they believe what it is, it's originally you had older women going for fertility treatments. And there was a higher percentage of multiple births, having 3 or 4, and you read about them, sometimes 6 children because of, I don't know exactly, but it had to do with the way the fertility treatments were given. In some cases, maybe even the women wanted more children, but that has changed. The criteria has changed. And so now you see fewer women at these clinics having multiple births, giving birth to 3 or 4 women. Now it's now it's 1 mostly, sometimes 2. So there's a change there. Probably a good trend. Going to get into some politics. Hopefully Justin will be here when that happens. And I got a question. With this election, we're seeing really interesting trends. And one piece of speculation is, are we seeing the end of the 2-party system? Also, I got a question. The race between Clinton and Trump at this point, early stages, seems to be a lot closer than I imagined, than most of us imagined. So the deciding factor, I think, is going to be the Sanders independents. And I was one. Who are we going to vote for?
Can I say something?
Sure.
All right. Do I think, well, just based on this week, it seems like Hillary is trying to hit back at Trump by calling him a liar and all these things. So I think it's getting more heated, but I haven't heard too much from Sanders yet. So maybe you have a point. Maybe he's trying to formulate his response next week or something. Because Hillary seems to be all over Trump, but Bernie, I think, still has a shot at getting the delegates if he really tries. In California and what's the other state?
They're West Coast states, but I don't remember them offhand.
Right. Yeah, I think he still has a shot if he's able to get a lot of delegates in those states. But Hillary just seems like she already declared herself the winner without being declared the winner.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no. I just meant I just feel like, since Trump's already in the lead, and unless there was I think there was a rumor this week of a third party candidate coming out of nowhere, but I'm not even sure if that's a option anymore, unless someone really gets lucky and is able to sweep the votes away from him. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay. We'll cover a little more detail, but the problem is the way our primary system is set up. And an aspect of that hurts Sanders is, on the Democratic side, about half of the primaries, you don't have independents voting. And it's with the independents that Sanders gets his greatest support. Now, the other thing is, it's with the Democratic Party, it's always proportional. So Sanders has a lot of ground to make up. Clinton does not need to win primaries. All Clinton needs to do is get maybe 40–45% of the vote. She does that, she still wins delegates. And Sanders can't make up the ground, enough ground at this point. So it's theoretically possible, but very unlikely. And Mike has joined us in the chat room. Hello, Mike. So let me get into the science. And the first story I've got, and let me try and screen share this this puppy with you. Okay, here we go. We got a picture of our friend, the dwarf planet Pluto. Now, it's amazing how much detail we're now able to pick up. And this is NASA's New Horizons mission. And based on the information they've gathered, they're speculating that there could be a nitrogen ocean, and on top of that nitrogen ocean, you could have icebergs floating on it. Really cool. And it says, data reported by NASA's New Horizon mission to Pluto system shows unusual terrain in one region. It features large deposits of nitrogen ice with a pattern of polygons that are thickest at the center and dip at the edges. Purdue University researchers have proposed that these polygons seen in the images could be something called Rayleigh-Burden convection cells. All right, the surface of Pluto appears to be primarily very cold ice water. However, with the Sputnik Planum region, the icy surface drops into a basin that holds a pool of nitrogen ice. Both water and nitrogen are solids at Pluto's temperatures, but the nitrogen ice is structurally weak. It has a low viscosity that allows it to deform and flow like a fluid, while the water ice has a very high viscosity, and can form tall, hard mountains. Within this pool of nitrogen ice, there are mountains of water ice that have collected at the edges of the polygons. The way they have collected suggests that they have moved or floated like icebergs with the convection current. If this is true, we can calculate how deep the pool would be for the icebergs to float freely without catching on the bottom. Data showed the polygons are 20 to 30 kilometers in diameter, and that's pretty good size. Only the tips of the water icebergs can be seen, just like those on Earth, and the team performed calculations as if they were spheres, a regular shape that requires the shallowest volume of liquid to float to create conservative depth estimates. Team's calculations based on water icebergs suggest the pool must be at least 5 kilometers deep. Calculations based on the width to depth ratio of the nitrogen convection suggest it is possibly 10 kilometers deep. And the results of both these calculations suggest a far deeper layer of nitrogen ice than the minimum 500 meters needed for convection to occur. The spectroscopic data from New Horizons mission provides information about a surface layer that is no thicker than a sheet of paper. Wow, yikes. However, convection would also explain how the surface of this area of Pluto is young. It's young, and it's overturned from convection would erase impact craters and renew this section of the dwarf planet's surface, which fits with the data New Horizon provided. So that's really cool information we're getting about our friend, the little dwarf planet Pluto. We're finding in all of these planets, these moons we look at, they're far more dynamic environments than what we had expected, particularly Pluto. Like you say, with Pluto, you're thinking mostly an ice planet. But now, it really looks like it's a dynamic. There's stuff happening on the surface of the planet. That's really, really cool. Okay. Moving on to the next story. All right, let me go to the links so I can screen share this again. Here we go. We're looking at Scientific America. Hey, cool diagram there. Now, the gist of this particular story is these researchers are looking at another gene editing tool. a tool that would focus, instead of focusing on DNA, as CRISPR-Cas9 does, it would focus on RNA. And these researchers have discovered scissors. There you go, little scissors for snipping genes, have now developed a similar approach for targeting and cutting RNA. The new cutting tool should help researchers better understand RNA's role in cells and diseases. Some of it could one day be useful in treatments of illnesses such as Huntington's to heart disease. To develop the blades for the process, the researchers, they were led by Feng Zhang at the Broad Institute, used CRISPR. And I don't know if you ever know what CRISPR actually stood for. I didn't. It's the clustered, regularly interspaced, short, pandemic repeats. And I'm going to go with CRISPR. A system that bacteria evolved to fight off pathogens. CRISPR has previously been used to edit DNA, but now these researchers think something similar could work with RNA. It's systematically explored. They systematically explored different aspects of that natural defense system that protects bacteria and may eventually be able to put it to use helping people. His new method, using an enzyme called C2C2 to target RNA, relies on an existing natural system and therefore may be more effective than an approach which requires more manipulation. The C2C2 system has not yet been shown to work in mammalian cells. The researcher is optimistic, of course. RNA targeting approaches have a long way to go before they can be tested on people. So this is the early stages, first steps. The researcher says, I think we will see an avalanche of these tools that will be able to use us to monitor and study RNA. This helps us think about RNA not just as an intermediary molecule between DNA and protein, it's the RNA that produces the actual protein, but as a therapeutic tool for treating diseases and problems of development. Manipulating RNA poses fewer ethical concerns than tinkering with the underlying DNA, although gene editing will remain a better approach for treating some diseases, probably most diseases. The problem with DNA editing is that it's permanent. It could be good, but what happens if you make a mistake? In some cases, such as brain cells, DNA repair mechanisms are so strong that it may be more effective to act on the RNA rather than cutting the DNA. The science paper reports that C2C2 could also be used to add fluorescent tags to RNA as a way to track and better understand activities. Like the Cas9 system that targets specific DNA, C2C2 can be aimed directly at desired RNA sequences with seemingly few off-target effects, fewer side effects. The reason that it has evolved is to be able to use RNA guides to target RNA. Okay, there you go. A new possible gene editing tool. The amazing part to me, and we're talking about like CRISPR-Cas9, I mean, that like 5 years ago maybe was just beginning to be used, and now it's almost exploded. Used for everything. Well, not used for everything, but it's used to identify and even in some cases treat diseases. So see this new enzyme tool, C2C2, again, just at the early stages, may not happen. You know, it may not turn out to be the great tool that the researchers think it is, but more than likely it will have some purposes, even if it only helps us understand RNA. All right, let me move on. And now, let's see, start it up. I'll change the lineup, change the old lineup. Let me look for story number 6. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Okay. And this deals with the question of why the human cerebral cortex is so much bigger and complex than it is with other primates. And this is a suggestion, just a possibility. Let me screen share. All right, there we go. The expansion of the cerebral cortex sets humans apart from the rest of their fellow primates. Yet scientists have long wondered what the mechanisms are for being responsible for this evolutionary development. New research has pinpointed a specific long, non-coding ribonucleic acid that regulates neural development. The expansion of the cerebral cortex sets humans apart from the rest of our fellow primates. And this is research from the Cortex Molecular and Cellular Neurobiological Lab at the University of California, Santa Barbara. They pinpointed a long, specific, non-coding ribonucleic acid, INC RNA, that regulates neural development. This INCND can be found only in the branches of primates that leads to humans. It's a stretch of nucleotides that does not code a protein. This is according to Kenneth Kosak. We demonstrated that INCND is turned on during development, but then it's turned off when the cell matures. Lead author Nia Rainey identifies for another type of RNA called microRNA. One of them, called microRNA 143, it binds to this INCND. We found that the INCND could sequence this microRNA, and in doing so, regulate the expression of something called Notch proteins. And these Notch proteins are very important regulators during neurodevelopment. They are involved in cell differentiation and cell fate and are critical in the neural development pathway. The researcher describes this INCND as a platform that binds these microRNAs like a sponge. This allows Notch to do what it's supposed to do during development. Then, as the brain matures, levels of INCND go down, and when they do, these microRNAs come flying off the platform. It says glom. There's a good scientific word for you. Glom onto the NOTCH, the Notch, to bring the levels down. You want Notch levels to be high while the brain is developing, but not once it matures. To replicate this, they used human stem cells to grow neurons in a little mini brain. pea-sized glob of brain tissue. The researchers wanted to see the radial glia cells in actual human brain tissue. So they turned to their colleagues at the Department of Stem Cell Biology in the graduation program at UC San Francisco. And they used something called situ hybridization. And they found INC and D in neural precursor cells that did not make mature neurons. It was right where we thought it would be in brain tissue, but we still had to go one additional step. So the San Francisco team introduced INC-ND into fetal brain of a gestating mouse. Green fluorescent protein labeling allowed them to see the early development pattern, and it showed that INC-ND, which is ordinarily not present in mice, has a functional effect in development. And this INC-ND is only found in primates. When they overexpressed INC-ND in the mouse fetus, we actually affected the development in the predicted manner. That's the key deal with science. You predict something will happen, and when it does, you know you're on target. Even though the mouse does not make the INC-ND at all. This work not only identifies a very critical gene for human brain development, but also offers a clue about a component that likely contributed to brain expansion in humans. We have shown that INC-ND might be an important player in human brain expansion. Another interesting aspect of the work is this INC-ND appears to help regulate the key development pathway of your good old notch signaling. And there you go. Once again, we are learning more and more about something happening at its earliest stages. I mean, I'll say maybe 10 years ago, you really didn't have a great clue as to what was happening in your fetuses and your embryos. Maybe you get a good picture of it. Now you're going down into individual genes. You're looking at these chemical interactions. It's really incredible how much we're learning about human development. And now that we learn how these specific chemical interactions work, we can use them. We can use them to, one, prepare better for a possible problem developing, let's say, in a fetus. We can prepare for it when it's born. And in some cases, we may even be able to treat the condition at that early stage in development. That's awesome. That's amazing. Okay. Moving on again. Let's see. I want to check out something. Jay. What's Jay talk? He has a story here on My Friend the Guardian, talking about Steve Jobs' love of simplicity is gone. No, I'll put that off on a little bit. Simplicity is, of course, important. I want to cover first, if you don't mind, Jay, cover a couple more stories, then we'll get back to that one. And this is our friend NASA. As I said earlier, they've got the satellites. We're now getting a much better idea about how the systems on Earth work, the Earth ecosystems, because we're seeing it from above. We're looking at weather systems happening across oceans, across continents, and we're also able to pinpoint better things that are happening in specific places by measuring chemical outputs. In this particular case, unfortunately, we're talking about toxic pollution. So I will also screen share this. There you go. This is from fizzy.org. There's your nasty toxic pollution. All right. Using a new satellite-based method, scientists at NASA, Environmental and Climate Change Canada, there you go. I think it's ROX. ROX is in Canada. There you go, Canada. A new health hazard and contributor to acid rain, sulfur dioxide, SO2, is one of 6 air pollutants regulated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Sulfur dioxide monitoring activities include the use of emission inventories that are derived from ground-based measurements and factors such as fuel usage. The inventories are used to evaluate regulatory policies for air quality improvements. But to develop comprehensive and accurate inventories, industries and government agencies and scientists first must know the location of the pollution source. We now have an independent measurement of these emission sources that does not rely on what was known or thought known. And this is Chris McLinden, an atmospheric scientist with the Environmental and Climate Change Canada in Toronto, lead author of this particular study. When you look at satellite picture of sulfur dioxide, you end up with it appearing as a hot spot, which makes the estimates of emissions much easier. The 39 unreported emission sources, unreported based on ground measurements, found in the analysis of satellite data from 2005 to 2014 are clusters of coal-burning power plants, smelters, oil and gas operations found notably in the Middle East, but also in Mexico and parts of Russia. In addition, reported emissions from these known sources in these regions are, in some cases, 2 to 3 times lower than the satellite-based estimates. Now, that's not a great surprise. You're running a smelting plant. You want to tell everybody, oh no, we're not polluting the environment. Okay, now we know we are. I don't know what we can do about it. Maybe we can bomb them or something. I don't know. In any event, altogether, the unreported and underreported sources account for about 12% of all man-made emissions of sulfur dioxide. Man, that's a huge percentage. 12% we didn't know about before. The research team also located 75 natural sources of sulfur dioxide, non-erupting volcanoes that are slowly leaking the toxic gas throughout the year. While not necessarily unknown, many volcanoes in remote locations are not monitored. So the satellite data is the first time they're able to look at these particular emissions. Quantifying the sulfur dioxide bullseyes is a 2-step process that would not have been possible without 2 innovations working with the satellite data. The first one was improving the computer processing that transforms raw satellite observations from a Dutch, Finnish, there you go, Finland, Arfenjani, Finland, ozone monitoring instrument aboard NASA's Aurora spacecraft. And the other one is, let's see, where is it from? Similar, it doesn't really tell me. Yes, it says they use several, so I don't know what the second improvement was. In any event, this unique advantage of satellite data is dramatic improvement over current coverage. Paper is the perfect demonstration how new and improved satellite data sets, coupled with new and improved data analyzing techniques, will allow us to identify even smaller pollution sources and quantify these emissions over the globe. So there you go, people. As bad as you think air pollution was, it's even worse. It's, about the source. If maybe you can have some kind of a, there's got to be a system of penalties. If you have kind of Middle East, Russia, or if they are really poisoning our atmosphere, maybe you can throw a tax on them. Maybe you can tax the products that they ship outside their countries. Maybe you can do something to penalize them for all of these emissions. The United States can take care of what's happening in the United States. Other countries that monitor their pollution more closely can do something. But when you're talking about Russia, they're less interested, less motivated to do something about toxic pollution that they're causing. So I don't know. At least we know about it now, and maybe we can take some steps to do about it. I know Mike is always, Mike in the chat, Michael Jobin in the chat area. That's a big thing with him. Should be with all of us. Let's see. Actually, I'll jump ahead. Jay, you're here. What is our friend Stephen Jobs? Let me try to screen share this. Haven't read it before. Jay, did you get a chance to read the story? Hello, Jay.
Oh yeah, I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Can you summarize it?
Sure. So basically, the idea is that this kind of single guy used to work with Jobs, I think, back in the 80s, and I think he's just been observing what Apple's been going through since, I guess, pretty much since he died, and he's kind of observing that things like the way they name their products and the fact that some of the features they put into it are just not, there's no wow factor in it. There's no wow factor in it anymore, and it's not really much of a big thing as it once was. And without its founder, it's kind of like a ship that's sort of floating, but still has that's kind of half. It's sort of like half sinking and like half staying afloat, I guess, which is what he's saying. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Apple, company like Apple are pretty amazing. They're amazing in that they're the most profitable corporations in human history. They can have the most profitable year they've ever had, record-breaking profits, and yet their stock goes down.
Right.
Stock goes down because they didn't meet straight expectations. They only sold 10 million of something and they thought they were going to sell 50. So that's one aspect of it. What that does is it puts pressure on the corporation. It puts pressure, the stockholder. I mean, the people in charge of Apple, well, they're beholden to their stockholders now, more
Right.
so. Stephen Jobs, he didn't care.
Right. Yeah, that's actually one of the things. It's simple. Like, I don't see why they have to please the stockholders when they haven't been that way forever. And then all of a sudden, with this new guy that took over, he kind of wants he wants to please them. So he's kind of putting them ahead of what the products will turn out like. That's what I kind of feel a little bit.
I doubt if he has a choice.
Because
two things. First of all, many of the employees, many of the higher ranking employees, maybe even all of them, they have stock options. And the value of those stock options are going to go up and down with Wall Street. So let's say they had that great quarter, wasn't good enough. The product that they produced, you know, I don't know all the factors in what makes a product more popular or not. I can't talk about that necessarily. But there's that pressure because, one, it affects their compensation directly. The second thing it does is, now I don't know what percentage of stock is held outside of Apple. If it's more than 50%, if it's 51%, then the stockholders can fire the board. I can't see that happening in a corporation like Apple because I suspect, unlike many other major corporations, stockholders don't own that high percentage of the stock as they do with some other corporations. But that's the factor. The more stock the stockholders have, the greater influence they will have on the corporation. And where Stephen Jobs will say, if it takes me 5 years to produce this thing, I'm going to do it the right way.
Right.
Now with the pressure, the corporation now says, we got to get a new product out. We got to get new sales out. So there's the pressure to produce and get something out earlier and maybe have problems.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I feel is going on. Like, just kind of like with the naming scheme, it's kind of becoming ridiculous that they keep adding different words and different things. And like, it's sort of like if you go and buy a car, but there's too many models of the car and you don't know which model to buy, you kind of have to play around with it a lot. You kind of have to go to each model and then you have to find out which one you like. Because your car dealer might have so many models of the same, like the company might have made so many different models of the same kind of car, I guess. So I think they're going to face that problem unless they simplify their line, like make it 3 different lines or 2 different product lines, and that's it.
We also have to. Oh, go ahead.
No, but yeah, that's kind of a point, I guess. Like, I just feel it's good to keep up with the market, but that also kind of what you said, it's just a setback because then they don't iron out some like issues that would still be present when the final product hits the public stores. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say about that.
Okay. Simplification and profit motive. Our American system is capitalism. And what makes the system work or not work is things like the stock market, the value of things. And once you go public, now if you don't go public, don't care. You can do whatever the heck you want to do because you're not beholden to any other stockholders. But the way you make bazillion dollars is you go public. You got your stock, you go public. The market then says your stock worth $50 a share, and you're sitting there with all this stock. All of a sudden, you got $50 billion. Who's going to turn that down?
Right.
So, and Stephen Jobs, I don't know when he did it, but they eventually went public. And Stephen Jobs is the sort of person, like you say, he's less concerned with the profit motive, but the new people coming in, they're going to be more influenced by stockholders, more influenced by pressure to make a profit. You look at the social media sites. You have Google, you have Facebook, and they're profitable companies.
Right.
Now there's 2 models. The first model is you pay for it. Spotify. You want to use Spotify? you pay Spotify $10 a month. Okay, you pay a fee, you use the service. Second model, which is Facebook, it's advertisers. Facebook can expand, etc., based on how much money they receive from advertisers. So now what does Facebook have to do? Pick up advertisements. So when I go onto the site, they have a little sidebar that shows advertising on it. It shows trending topics or whatever. So you've got to change your model, the free model when Facebook originally started. Once you go public, you got to get those profits. You don't get those profits, stockholders unhappy, the stock you own, it drops, and you might get fired. Even if you're the director of the stock, you get some big time investors in there. I can't think of their names at this point. There's one guy who owns $bazillion of stocks. He's got a fund. And I mean, that guy, if he buys 25% of your stock and he says, okay, guys, you got to do something, you better listen to him.
Right.
So,
because there goes your money.
Yes, it's a consequence of being successful, but
Right.
I'd rather have that problem.
Right.
I mean, what was it? Microsoft, maybe 10, 15 years ago, Microsoft's going to take off the world. Microsoft has taken over everything. Well, what happened? They still make a lot of money, but they ain't taking over the world anymore. Now it's Google.
Right.
Going to take over the world, maybe.
Yeah, Microsoft sort of kind of missed the boat with I think you were talking about it a few shows ago, the whole smartphone thing. Microsoft pretty much missed the boat with the smartphone. And I guess they're kind of trying to cater to that with the tablets. But yeah, they kind of missed the mobile space because everyone's flocking to the iPhone or Google or one of the other ones. So yeah, I think they try to take over the world in every other way, but I guess they were too caught up in that they missed some opportunities.
And
yeah,
that's a problem that adds to this. One, you wait, you do it right. Apple's way. Apple's way is let the other guy try it. That used to be Apple's way. Let the other guy do it first. Let them make all the mistakes. We'll learn from it, and we'll get it done right. Can't do that anymore because if you miss the boat, you miss that trend, and the competition gets ahead of you, you're dead in the water. And things like smartphones and devices like that, man, the turnover is incredibly fast. So many people, they buy a new smartphone every couple of years, every 5 years. The what you can use them for, the apps and things, change dramatically. You go from having maybe 8 bytes of RAM or whatever to 32, and if you miss that boat, you're dead in the water.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting phenomenon. Okay. Back to trends, and a theme in a lot of the stories I picked here has to do with trends. In this particular case, we're talking about in developing countries, renewables have increased 5%, and that's just last year. Let me screen share with you guys. Oops, clicking the wrong button. Here we go. We got ourselves your old solar panels. Now, it says in developing countries spent more on renewable power than rich ones for the first time last year, driving the fastest increase in sources of green energy on record. Global investment in renewable power is more than double the amount spent on new coal and natural gas-fired power generation in 2015, and this is according to the Renewables Global Status Report. Everybody's getting the message. Got to go to renewables and got to get away from relying on coal and natural gases. Overall spending on green energy rose 5% from 2014 to $286 billion, beating the previous high in 2011. Now, I do have a question about what they call a developing nation. They're saying China is a developing nation. I don't know. Yeah, maybe by some economic criterias in this kind of field it might be, but I don't know that. I wouldn't call China a developing nation. In any event, China opened its coffers to the widest, accounting for more than a third of the total investment worldwide, while India, South Africa, Mexico, and Chile significantly increased spending. In total, some 147 gigawatts of capacity was added during the year, largest increase ever, reportedly the equivalent of all Africa's generating capacity. Renewables are now established around the world as mainstream sources of energy, and new markets are both centralized and distributed. Renewable energy are emerging in all regions of the world. Solar and wind are the biggest winners, with more than half of the money committed to renewables in 2015, and they spent on harnessing the sun's energy. But investments in other renewables, such as biofuels and hydropower, fell, unfortunately, while the use of alternate fuels in transportation also lagged behind other areas. Spending on green energy in developing countries also slipped, particularly in Europe, where overall investment slumped around a fifth compared to the previous year. That could possibly be we're getting into economic problems. And Europe in particular has got some really serious economic problems. So as a result, they may have been less willing to try something new. Let's use what we got. And, let's not develop a new green energy so much. That could be a reason. Policymakers need to remove barriers that are preventing the increased share of renewables in heating and cooling and transport. Policymakers should think on a long-term basis, which they certainly should. Come on. There we go. Oops, I lost Jay. Let's see. You had to answer the phone. Okay, Jay. Green tech is obviously the future. It makes no sense. It's dramatically better in every respect. One, to use freely available sunlight. It's free. You don't have to mine. You don't have to get materials out of the earth. You're talking about why are carbon levels rising? Well, you're taking carbon that's trapped in like oil, that's dinosaurs. And all that carbon has turned into oil. It's trapped in the oil. You bring it up the ground, you burn it, you release all that carbon. It costs you money. It costs you money to dig it out of the ground. A lot of countries are still using it simply because, it's the resource they've got. There are some people in the United States in coal mining areas, they say, listen, we're importing oil. Well, that's not true anymore, but when we were importing oil, he said, why? We got plenty of coal in the ground. Yeah, well, the answer to that is you still got to dig it up. You dig it up, you release the carbon, you're polluting the atmosphere. And coal plants are cleaner now. They've got the scrubbers, etc. But they're never going to be as clean as solar energy. Solar energy still has not matured. It's really improving dramatically. You're seeing more states in the United States investing in it. You know, countries, they can see the handwritings on the wall. They're investing more into it. But the battery, man, when somebody builds that better battery, that solar panel that can go from collecting and storing, let's say 20, 30% to 50%, man, it's going to be a tremendous improvement in terms of the energy that you're capturing, store it, release it. That better battery, that better solar panel, and they're improving all the time. They've jumped up from maybe 15, the solar panels jumping up from capturing maybe 15% of the solar energy to 30% now. So it's inevitable. And the sooner you change, the better shape you're going to be in. The longer you wait not to change. Now, public power companies in the United States, the longer it takes you not to change, you're going to miss that boat again. We're eventually going to have, when you get that really good battery and the really good solar panel, we're going to have our own solar panel in our backyards. We're not going to need power companies. We're going to be able to, get our enough sunlight, et cetera, and fuel our own homes. No more grid. Grid's going to go away. And it's going to happen much sooner than we think it will. Okay. All right. Wearable technology. Got a little story here about a wearable device designed for people with asthma. Okay. All right. They've developed, and there they are. You see the two researchers there. And this is early stages. This is proof of concept. It's not fully developed. But the researchers have developed an integrated wearable system that monitors users' environment, heart rate, and other physical attributes with the goal of predicting and preventing asthma attacks. System called Health and Environmental Tracker, HET, composed of a suite of new sensor devices developed by researchers from the National Science Foundations and Nanoscience Engineering Research Center for Advanced Self-Powered Systems and blah, blah, blah. Okay. According to the Center for Disease and Prevention Control, you got 24 million people in America affected by asthma. Our goal was to design a wearable system that tracked the wellness of the subjects, in particular, provided the infrastructure to predicting asthma attacks so that the user could take steps to prevent them by changing their activities or environment. So you've got a host of these novel sensing devices, which are incorporated into a waistband and a patch that adheres to the chest. The patch includes sensors that track a patient's movement, heart rate, respiratory rate, the amount of oxygen in the blood, skin impedance, I don't know what that means, IMPEDANCE, and wheezing in the lungs. So that skin stuff must not be good. The waistband focuses largely on environmental factors, monitoring volatile organic compounds and ozone in the air, as well as ambient humidity and temperature. The waistband includes additional sensors to monitor motion, heart rate, and the amount of oxygen in the blood. So the system has one non-wearable component, a spiral meter. That's where patients breathe into this device several times a day, and it manages lung function. And we talked about a new one, a new improved one, a couple of months ago, I think. Right now, people with asthma are asked to use a peak flow meter to measure lung function on a day-to-day basis. For height, we developed a customized self-powered spiral meter, which collects more accurate information. And the low power consumption is important because it gives the device a longer battery life. Now, there you go. People with problems like asthma, and there's a lot of them, Now you're going to have these wearable devices that are going to do two things. First thing they're going to do is they're going to track your own health, track your lung capacity. How's your lung capacity doing? And they're going to track it daily. Second thing that it's going to do, it's going to look at air quality and things like that. And it's going to be able to say, okay, here are components, here are pollutants, etc., that may impact you. They can see as you're breathing them in, that whether or not they are impacting you, whether you're starting to have a health problem, you can do something about it immediately. Just an amazing development that we're going to see personalized health medicine. Talked about this before. You're going to monitor your own health 24/7. You're not going to have to wait for that doctor's visit. All right. Okay. Got a bunch of stories. Normally, I'd be asking, okay, you got, I want to get some, I've got a lot of other stories to talk about. I don't want to, I would love to talk about things that you guys are interested, but I'm not really sure what they are. Okay, I'm going to track to kind of a fun story. This is, okay. Monitoring. Now, okay, you go into a website. Maybe it's, they're advertising products. And you're going onto a newspaper site, looking at different articles. The people on those websites, running those websites, they want to know how many eyeballs they're getting. They want to know which are the most popular stories, so they can maybe post more of those kinds of stories. Which are the products you're really interested, so they can hit you with advertising, targeted advertising. Great idea, right? Customer service for everyone. Now, this is all they want you to do. All they want you to do is allow them to access your webcam. Don't let them get into your webcam so they can track your eye movements. We got a neat little graphic here. I got a good laugh out of it. I'm going to screen share it with you. I don't know, maybe you guys in the chat room can tell me, what do you think? You're going to let them have access to your webcam. They're only going to use it. You got to give them permission. And once you give them permission, they promise, hand to God, once you stop using the site, you're not going to have to worry about them accessing your webcam anymore. That access is gone, they say. I don't know. I really don't know if I'm prepared to give anybody access to my webcam. They have devices now that you can, I don't know what the heck it is. It's a big tower like thing, and it listens to you. You can say, "Hey Siri, start the coffee machine," and it'll turn on the coffee machine, or it will, maybe turn on the oven and preheat the oven. So these devices, you talk to them, gathers information, and it helps you, and it looks cool, really, really cool. And targeted ads. Hey, wouldn't that be great? You have to get the ads. People got to make money so you can have the service. Wouldn't it be great if you only got the ads you're interested in? And all they want you to do is they want you to put a device so it can hear everything you're talking about. That's all they want you to do. And maybe they get access to your little old webcam so they can. Of course not. They don't want to know what you're doing at all times. They certainly don't want to see me walking around my condo in my jammies. But hey, what could go wrong? Hot Rod says the NSA decides differently. Of course, the NSA is looking out for our good, aren't they? Huh? They're only looking after those kill murdering terrorists, aren't they? I don't know. I can see people buying into it, some people. Anybody who knows anything about security and what can happen, I just can't see this being a thing that's going to have a lot of adoption. So Hot Rod says we don't want ads, but you know, Facebook. Do you like Facebook? Facebook is there. The things they do with the development, the different stuff, it's all costing money. Where are they going to get the money? What's your choice? Would you rather pay a service fee for Facebook, or would you rather allow them to put ads on the side? I'd rather allow them to put ads personally, as opposed to me paying a fee. I've got enough sites I'm paying a fee on. So, but I mean, that's really your choice, and that's it. If they're going to provide the service for free, they're going to have to rely on ads. No choice. Okay. Let's see. Hot Rod. Pay for TV. Why are we forced to watch commercials? Well, of course, that's the old model. The old model, mainstream TV. I don't have a good answer. Oh, if I put on my little hat here and say, okay, number one, you have two companies involved in producing and getting that show to you. First, you have the people who are actually producing the show. They're creating the content. Those people are making their money from the people who have the pipes. The big station, CBS, for instance, or actually in this case, the pipes being controlled by Comcast. So what you got is, number one, your content creator goes to CBS, and CBS gives them buckets of money to produce a show. Okay. CBS then goes to Comcast, and Comcast says, all right, we will put you in our lineup. We'll include you in the pipes that we provide to all the people that pay us Comcast a fee. And well, I don't know exactly how it works. You'll give us a percentage of something, or you'll pay us some money. I don't know. But you got three people, three entities involved in that mainstream TV process, and they all got to make money. And they make money two ways. One is in Comcast, they make money by charging the user a fee. In the other case with CBS, they're making the money through advertising. The answer is going to be more and more you go to the fee-based model. Netflix. More people are going to Netflix. I'm sure there's more eyeballs on Netflix every single hour, every single minute of the day than there are on any mainstream TV channel. And that's because you pay a fee, but you don't get the advertisements. Hulu's a hybrid. Hulu's trying to change. Hulu has both the fee and you get the advertisement. I don't know. They're going to have a move away for it because eventually it's all going to be fee-based. I cut the cord. I don't get my broadcast TV over Comcast anymore. But what I do is I subscribe to channels, to websites. I get Netflix is one. I can go to Home Box Office. I pay Home Box Office a fee when Game of Thrones is on. I pay them $15 a month. When Game of Thrones goes off the air, I unsubscribe. Okay. I also pay, there's a company called MHZ Choice, TV shows from Europe. I give them a couple of bucks so I can watch TV shows from Europe. I give Acorn. Acorn is British shows through the British Commonwealth from Canada, Australia, and England. I pay them some money, and I get to watch those shows. And I do have CBS went to a CBS All Access service. So I pay them a certain amount of money a month only for CBS because there's a couple of TV shows I really like to watch on that channel, and I pay them a fee, but I don't pay Comcast anything. Overall, I may not be saving money, but I have much more control. Okay, let's see. Let us see what Hot Rod has to say in the chat room. I've opened 43,000. 43,000. Let me close some. Close a few links here. So I'm going to get to the chat room. There we go. All right, Hot Rod. It says TV is going downhill simply because we can't. And let's see. I can't read the whole thing. I had to move it over a little bit. So, yep, TV is going downhill simply because we can't decide what is available. Only which channels to watch. Netflix, we can choose what and when we want to watch. Exactly right, really. And we got TV show, a cable show that I watch. It's Brian Brushwood and, I forget the other guy. I mean, that's what they talk about. You want to watch something when you want it, any damn way you want it, on any device you want to watch it. And really, that's the way it's going to happen. That's the way of the future. Eventually, CBS has started to do it, and eventually NBC. They're going to follow. And I can really see someday in the future, it's happening with music, where the performer is going to say, okay, I want to make a movie. Why do I have to go to a movie company? Why don't I just go to some investor? Hey, investor, give me buckets of money. I'll make the movie, and then I will put it before the public, cut out the middleman, cut out the big movie producing companies, cut out, the big television studios. I'll have my own channel. I'll charge a fee. You like what I put out, you'll pay a fee to me directly. And hello, WIguy 2, for joining us in the chat area. Okay, so that is obviously the future. It's getting here. It isn't going to save us money. No. I already know that. It's not going to save us money because I got all these separate channels. I'm paying, $10 here, $10 there. And every once in a while I want to watch something and it's only available on home box office. I got to buy the, maybe the season. So I'm not saving any money there, but I have control. And I can stream it to that magical streaming devices. So it's more about control than it is about saving money. Okay. Also got a bit of a back problem, guys. Excuse me, got to stretch a little bit. Watch the old guy falling apart here. And I got to wet my whistle. Okay. If you see me collapsing, it's because my back gave out. All right. Got a neat little story here about our friend Sweden. It's kind of interesting. Population trends, population demographics in our friend Sweden. Okay. Sweden is experiencing a gender balance shift that caught everybody by surprise. For the first time since 749, oh boy. The brain is beginning to go as well as the back. Okay. For the first time since 1749, it now has more men than women. And they don't know what to make of this sudden male surplus. And it's unusual in the West, where women historically have been in the majority in almost every country. But this is gradually changing everywhere. It's a novel phenomena in Europe. And this is Francisco Belliari of the University of Oxford, a demographic person and he is president of the European Association of Population Studies. As researchers, we haven't been on top of it. Caught him by surprise. Tipping point came in March last year when the population showed, in this case, a very small number, but more men than women. The gap has grown since then from maybe 300 to about 12,000. It's small in a population of 10 million, but the trend is up. Despite a natural birth rate, 105 boys are born for every 100 girls. Still, European women have historically outnumbered women because they live longer. Associated Press analysis of the national and European Union population suggests women will remain in the majority in most European countries for decades to come. But the number of men per woman is increasing, slowly in Europe as a whole, but quickly in Northern and Central European countries. So the demographics are changing. Norway swung to a male surplus in 2011, then Sweden 4 years later, and in Denmark and Switzerland, they're nearing a ratio of 100. Germany had an unnatural defect because of 2 wars. A lot of guys get killed. And the sex ratio has jumped. It's gone from 87% men to 96% men. Britain's sex ratio changed from 93% men to 97% men. And they're not sure of what's happening to a society when this is happening. And this is the controversial part. I was kind of hoping Pamela was here, and maybe Justin, we can get a discussion of it. But we have a couple of different views. We have a Thomas Sobataka, Vienna Institute of Demographics, says a male surplus could increase the bargaining power of women by allowing them to be choosier when picking a partner. They could also face an increased risk of harassment from frustrated males struggling to find a mate. Sweden's rapid shift to male majority, which experts hadn't expected to come, triggered a debate among some feminists about the potential impact on women in the world's most egalitarian, I butchered that word, sorry, countries. Statistics show Sweden's demographic shift is mainly due to men catching up with women and life expectancy. Okay, a couple of other demographics. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Okay. We have a woman by the name of Valerie Hudson. She's in charge of, this is a neat program, Women, Peace, and Security, Texas A&M. Said that makes Swedes should be concerned because the research has linked skewed sex ratios in China and India to more violence against women and higher research level. What's happening in Sweden is one of the most dramatic alterations of demography in a short period of time that she had ever seen. Are people thinking about whether this could undermine the gains they have made by Swedish women over 150 years? But no, Jacques True says it's hogwash. He's a professor of politics and international relations at Monash University in Australia. How many men are in a population matters less than how much a society is shaped by highly masculine gender characteristics such as aggression and hierarchy, which males prefer. Got another theory. Anouk Wibben of the University of San Francisco says gender equality is so deeply embedded in Swedish society that comparisons to China or India, where sex-selective abortions have resulted in an unnatural surplus of men, don't tell you much. Excuse me for a second. Okay. Last year, 12,000 more men than women in the European Union. Gap is dropping. Mostly, well, there's also one interesting change in specifically some countries. like Sweden, is they had, in the last couple of years, a lot of teens from Muslim countries immigrating, where they're having civil wars, immigrating to Sweden. So you have the sudden surge in unaccompanied teenage boys. Maybe they lost their families in the Civil War. And there are civil wars happening in Syria. So you're getting shifts. In this particular case, maybe it's a lot of males coming into the country, unaccompanied teens. That could be one part of it. Small part of it, though, because the number of people that are immigrating are really small as a percentage of the overall population. So I don't think that's going to be a big component. The fact that men are living longer, that's probably the more likely reason. Guys are paying more attention to our health. Heart attacks. The big killer for guys is heart disease. Well, now we're learning how to diagnose it more early, treat it more early. So that big killer for guys, heart disease, is dramatically being decreased. That means guys are going to live longer. Your sex ratio is going to change. I wanted to ask the question, does it really make any difference if there are more men than women? And in a country like the United States, I don't think it's going to make a bit of difference. I can't see where it'll make any difference whatsoever. It would have made a difference 50 years ago when you had traditional roles, women in the home, maybe women controlling the purse strings, the guy working, etc. And that kind of a society that we had maybe 50, 100 years ago, yes, it would have made a big difference in society. Now, I don't think it's going to make a bit of difference. Let's see what is happening. Oh, Mike likes his fireworks. He brought some fireworks to an area. Oh, this is WIguy talking about where he lives. Okay, and WIguy traveled to Minneapolis from time to time. And Mike is saying that he went to Plover for fireworks there in '95. Okay, guys talking about fireworks display. And Michael Jobin has his own website. Actually, let me take a look. At, gotta go over to the YouTubes. Okay, Mike, going to the YouTubes. Gonna look up my friend Michael Jobin. See, here we go. I'm sure Mike won't object. Give him some pre-advertisement here. I will put it in the chat area. Here you go, Mike. People can actually look at your ugly mug. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting site, and he's really big into fireworks displays. If you want to watch him, and even in some cases telling you a little bit how he makes fireworks, you go over and you take a look at Mike Jobin's site. I will, if I can remember, put it in the show notes. Okay. What else we got? We got interesting story. This has to do with multiple births. And what you had was, I'll say 15, 20 years ago, what you had was you had older women suddenly deciding, not suddenly, but they're deciding, okay, they want to have a baby. Maybe they focused on their career. They're older now, they're more established, and they want to have a baby. All right. Some of them at least went to fertility clinics. And for whatever reason, you saw more multiple births. Triplets, 3, 4, 5 children. In some cases, you're at about 6 children. Well, that trend has reversed itself. I'm going to screen share once again. Oh, that's not the story. Didn't hit the right button here. Okay, where are we, guys? Blah, blah, blah. Got it in here somewhere. Hold on. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry, guys. I'll find it. Tracking. There we go. Okay. This is on our friend, the New York Times. Oh, come on, you stupid New York Times. They threw an advertising or something. Give me. That's the story I wanted. Okay. These were triplets that were born, and you're going to see less and less triplets. Okay. The story reads, the rate of triplet and higher order births rose rapidly in the 1980s and 90s. The trend has now been reversed. And good night. Good night, Jay. He's off to bed. Or I will be shortly. Actually, once they take about 8, maybe a couple of ibuprofen, so my back doesn't bother me. In any event. New report, National Center for Health Statistics, the rate of triplet and higher order births plunged 41% from 1998 to 2014. Now they say more than 90% of these were triplets. Almost all of the decline occurred among women 25 years and older, particularly women 45 and older. Wow. A drop of 67%. Non-Hispanic white women had the largest drop, about 46%. But rates of triplet or higher order births were still 50% higher in these groups than among non-Hispanic blacks and more than twice as high as the rate among Hispanic women. The decline was nationwide except 2 states. Oklahoma and Louisiana had an increase in triplets. Make of that what you will. Older mothers are likely to have multiple births. The increase before 1998 was largely attributed to that fact. Age of mothers has continued to increase, so you would expect the rate of triplets to increase. So the decline cannot be attributed to the change in maternal age. We think the decline is largely related to changes in fertility therapies, particularly assisted reproduction technologies. And these fertility centers now urge, for example, not to implement multiple embryos in women. So that, I'm sure, is the case. Okay. Come on. Clicking buttons all over the place here. Hot Rod is off to bed. And I tell you, the way my back has been bothering me, I think I am going to have to call it a day myself. Let me get back to the chat room. Now I'm back in the chat room. So I'm going to end the podcast and the Hangout right now. If we had Justin here, I'd get into a big political discussion, but I'm not going to do that. So I am going to stop the broadcast, stop the production,